They say the best revenge is living well. They are wrong. The best revenge is watching the person who destroyed you beg for mercy while you hold the keys to their cage. 3 years ago, Austin Pierce threw his wife out on the street like garbage to make room for his mistress. He thought she was weak. He thought she was broken. He thought he'd never see her again. He was right about one thing. The woman he divorced is dead. But the woman who returned, she's a hurricane wrapped in silk. And she didn't come back to argue. She came back to take everything. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. That was exactly how Gabrielle felt, standing on the marble steps of the King County Superior Court, slick cold and utterly discarded. She held a single manila envelope against her chest to shield it from the drizzle. It contained the final decree. Dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. The legal terms for, I found someone younger, richer, and I don't need you anymore. Austin Pierce walked out of the revolving doors 5 minutes later. He didn't look like a man who had just ended a 10-year marriage. He looked like a man who had just closed a profitable business deal. He adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke navy suit, checked his Rolex, and popped a peppermint into his mouth. Hanging on his arm was Heather. 24 years old, blonde, and wearing a coat that cost more than Gabriel's car. Heather didn't look at Gabriel with sympathy. She looked at her with the smug pity of a winner, surveying the loser. "Gabby," Austin said, stopping 3 steps above her. He used the nickname he knew she hated. It felt like a pat on the head to a tool he was taking to the pound. "Look, I know the alimony isn't what you wanted, but let's be real. You never really contributed to the firm. You were great at maintaining the home. But the business, that's for the big leagues." Gabrielle tightened her grip on the envelope. Her knuckles were white. "I built the client list for Pierce and Company, from my kitchen table, Austin. While you were playing golf, I was cold-calling investors. Don't rewrite history, just because you're sleeping with the secretary." Heather gasped a theatrical pearl-clutching sound. "I am the vice president of marketing, actually." "You're a glorified pamphlet distributor, Heather," Gabrielle said, her voice shaking. Not with sadness, but with a rage so hot it felt like it was burning a hole in her throat. Austin sighed, shaking his head. "See. This bitterness. This is why it had to end. You're toxic, Gabrielle. You're stuck in the past. I'm a visionary. I need a partner who looks forward." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. The prenup held up. The non-compete held up. You have nothing. You can't work in this industry in this state for 5 years. Take the settlement check, buy a cat, and move back to whatever small town you crawled out of. He didn't wait for a response. He signaled for his black SUV. As the driver opened the door, Austin paused and looked back one last time. "Don't try to contact me. Don't try to fight this. You're a ghost now, Gabby. Go haunt someone else." The SUV pulled away, splashing dirty gutter water onto the hem of Gabrielle's thrifted trench coat. She stood there for a long time. The rain soaked through her hair, plastering it to her skull. Passers-by ignored her. To them, she was just another woman crying outside a courthouse. A statistic. But inside Gabrielle, something snapped. It wasn't a break. It was a realignment. For 10 years, she had been the silent engine behind Austin's success. She had proofread every contract, smoothed over every drunken insult he'd hurled at potential partners, and managed the books when they were so broke they ate ramen for Thanksgiving. She knew where the bodies were buried. She knew which accounts were offshore. She knew exactly how Austin Pierce had cheated his way to the top. She looked at the check in her hand. It was for $25,000. A pittance, enough to survive for a few months, maybe. She tore it up. The pieces fluttered down into the puddle at her feet. "A ghost," she whispered to the empty street. "Okay, Austin, I'll be a ghost." She turned and walked toward the bus stop. She wasn't going to her small apartment. She was going to the library to print a one-way ticket. She had a contact in Zurich, an old friend of her father's named Tobias, who dealt in information. Gabrielle Stone didn't vanish because she was hiding. She vanished because she needed time to sharpen the knife. 3 years later. Austin Pierce was a king. At least that's what Forbes magazine called him. The headline of the September issue read, "The Midas of the Pacific Northwest." How Austin Pierce turned tech logistics into gold. He sat in his corner office on the 40th floor, overlooking the Seattle skyline. The rain was still falling, just like it had 3 years ago. But from up here, you couldn't feel the damp. You could only see the lights. "Honey, are you listening to me?" Austin spun his chair around. Heather was lounging on the white leather sofa, scrolling through her phone. She was now his wife. The wedding had been the social event of the season, lavish, loud, and entirely deductible as a business expense. "Sorry, babe," Austin said, taking a sip of scotch. "Just admiring the view. We own this city." "Well, the city is boring tonight," Heather complained. "And the architect for the Hamptons house says we're over budget again. Apparently imported Italian marble is scarce." "Throw money at him until he stops talking." Austin waved a hand dismissively. "We just closed the deal with Omnicorp. Our stock is up 200%. We can afford the marble." Austin's phone buzzed on his desk. It was his lawyer, a weasel of a man named Benedict. "What is it, Ben?" "It's 9 p.m. "Austin, we have a hiccup." Benedict's voice was tinny and anxious. "The Omnicorp merger. Their board is demanding a final audit of the 2022 financials before they sign the check next week. Specifically, the consulting fees routed through the Cayman accounts." Austin felt a small prick of irritation. "We buried those. That's why I pay you. Tell them it's proprietary data." "I tried. They have a new external auditor, a firm out of London called Nemesis Capital. These guys are sharks, Austin. They aren't accepting the standard redacted files. They want the source documents." Austin laughed. "London. Who cares about some British bean counters? Send them the sanitized versions again. If they push, tell them the deal is off. Omnicorp needs us more than we need them." "I don't know, Austin. This auditor, the lead partner. They sent a courier, a personal letter for you. Read it. It just says the truth has no statute of limitations." Austin froze. The ice in his glass clinked. The phrase was familiar. It was something Gabriel used to say when he'd try to cut corners on their tax returns in the early days. No, he thought. Impossible. She's gone. She's probably waiting tables in Idaho. "Ignore it," Austin snapped. "It's a negotiation tactic. Just handle it, Ben." He hung up, but the mood in the room had shifted. The air felt thinner. "Who was that?" Heather asked, not looking up from Instagram. "Just business." Austin lied. He walked to the window. The truth was, Austin had been sloppy. In the 3 years since Gabrielle left, he had become arrogant. Gabrielle's home had been his safety net, the one who checked the fine print. Without her, he had surrounded himself with yes-men like Benedict and trophy executives like Heather. He had started taking bigger risks, skimming more off the top, assuming his momentum made him untouchable. He didn't know that for 3 years, someone had been watching. Across the ocean, in a sleek glass-walled office in London, a woman stood looking at a wall of monitors. The screens displayed real-time stock fluctuations of Pierce and Company. She wore a tailored black suit that cost more than Austin's car. Her hair was cut into a sharp, asymmetrical bob. Her face was harder now, the soft lines of the supportive wife, gone replaced by the angular beauty of a predator. The nameplate on her desk didn't say Gabrielle Stone. It said Gabrielle D'Angelo, a name she had legally reclaimed from her mother's lineage. A young man entered the office. Ms. D'Angelo. The courier confirmed delivery to Mr. Pierce. Gabrielle didn't turn around. She stared at the stock ticker, watching the numbers climb. The higher he went, the harder he would fall. "Good," she said. Her voice was cool, smooth, and terrifyingly calm. "He thinks it's a negotiation. He thinks it's about money." "Is it about money, ma'am?" the assistant asked. Gabrielle turned. Her eyes were dark, burning with a cold fire. "No, James. Money is just the weapon. This is an execution." She walked to her desk and picked up a file. It was thick, labeled Project Glass House. "Book the jet for Seattle," she ordered. "The Omnicorp Gala is in 3 days. I think it's time the new auditor introduced herself." Back in Seattle, Austin poured himself another drink. His hands were shaking slightly. He told himself it was just caffeine jitters. But deep down in the pit of his stomach, he felt a familiar sensation. It was the feeling of being watched. He looked at Heather, who was now complaining about the color of her new Porsche. He suddenly felt very alone. "Did you hear me?" Heather snapped. "I said I want the matte black, not the gloss." "I heard you," Austin roared, smashing his glass against the wall. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Heather screamed. "What is wrong with you?" Austin stared at the shattered glass. "I don't know," he whispered. I have a bad feeling." The storm was coming, and unlike the rain outside, this one wasn't going to stop. The Omnicorp Gala was held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. It was a disgusting display of wealth champagne fountains, ice sculptures shaped like dollar signs, and enough diamonds to pay off the national debt of a small country. Austin Pierce was working the room. He had regained his composure. The incident with the glass was forgotten, smoothed over with a diamond bracelet for Heather. Tonight he was the star. Tonight he was signing the preliminary agreement that would make him a billionaire. "Austin, you look like $1 billion, shouted the CEO of Omnicorp, a boisterous man named Roger. "Feeling it, Roger." Austin grinned, clinking glasses. "Ready to sign?" "Almost," Roger said, his expression sobering slightly. "We're just waiting on the final nod from the external audit team. They insisted on being here tonight. Said they wanted to look you in the eye before clearing the books." Austin forced a laugh. "Dramatic. I like it. Where are these mystery accountants?" "Right there." Roger pointed toward the grand staircase. The room went quiet. Usually, accountants entered a room unnoticed. But the woman descending the stairs commanded silence. She was wearing a dress of liquid silver that clung to her frame like a second skin. It was backless, daring, and elegant. She wore no jewelry except for a pair of vintage emerald earrings that caught the light with every step. Austin squinted. The walk. He knew that walk. But the confidence, the sheer radiating power that was foreign. She reached the bottom of the stairs, and the crowd parted for her. She walked straight toward Roger and Austin. As she got closer, Austin's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. The eyes. He knew those eyes, but they used to look at him with adoration. Now they looked at him like he was a bug under a microscope. "Roger," she said, her voice a velvety alto that sent shivers down Austin's spine. "Thank you for the invitation." "Austin," Roger said, oblivious to the tension, "I'd like you to meet the senior partner at Nemesis Capital. This is Ms. Gabrielle D'Angelo." Gabrielle smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was a shark baring its teeth. "Hello, Austin," she said, extending a hand. "It's been a long time." Austin stared at her hand. He couldn't move. His brain was misfiring. Gabrielle, this fierce, terrifying woman, was his ex-wife, the one who used to clip coupons. Gabby. He choked out. Heather, sensing a threat, latched onto Austin's arm. "Who is this?" she demanded, her voice shrill. Gabrielle turned her gaze to Heather. She looked her up and down, taking 2 seconds to dismantle Heather's entire self-esteem. "You must be the vice president of marketing," Gabrielle said, allowing a tiny, cruel pause. "I love what you've done with the pamphlets." A ripple of laughter went through the nearby crowd. Heather turned beet red. "I am his wife," Heather spat. "I know," Gabrielle said softly. "I used to have that job. The benefits are terrible, and the severance package is even worse." She turned back to Austin, who was pale and sweating. "Ms. D'Angelo," Austin stammered, trying to regain control. "I didn't know you were in finance." "There's a lot you don't know, Austin," she said. She leaned in close, invading his personal space. "For example, you don't know that Nemesis Capital now owns 15% of Omnicorp's voting shares, which means I have to approve your merger." Austin felt the floor tilt. "What?" "And I have some questions about the books," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Specifically about the Ghost Protocol accounts in the Caymans. You remember those, don't you? The ones you set up while we were still married, the ones you used to hide assets during the divorce." Austin stopped breathing. "Oh, don't look so scared." Gabrielle patted his cheek. It was a mocking, degrading gesture. "We're going to have so much fun, Austin. I'm going to audit every single inch of your life." She pulled back and raised her champagne glass. "To the truth," she toasted loud enough for the circle of executives to hear. "To the truth," Roger cheered, clinking her glass. Austin didn't drink. He watched Gabrielle walk away, disappearing into the crowd of elites who were now whispering about the stunning woman who had just gelded Austin Pierce in public. "Who the hell is she?" Heather hissed. "Austin, fix this." Austin watched Gabrielle's silver dress shimmer in the distance. "I can't," he whispered. "She knows. She knows everything." The hunt had begun, and for the first time in his life, Austin Pierce realized he was the prey. Monday morning at Pierce & Company was usually a parade of arrogance. Austin liked to start the week by strutting through the bullpen, criticizing the interns and loudly taking credit for work he didn't do. But this Monday was different. The atmosphere was brittle. At 8 a.m. sharp, a convoy of 3 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. Austin watched from his office window, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. He saw Gabrielle step out. She wasn't wearing the silver gown from the gala, but her outfit was no less intimidating, a sharp crimson pantsuit that looked like it had been cut from spilled blood. She was flanked by 4 associates, men and women, in charcoal suits carrying briefcases like weapons. "She's here," Austin muttered to himself. He turned to the intercom. "Lydia, send Heather in here. Now!" Lydia, his administrative assistant, hesitated. "Mr. Pierce, Heather. I mean, Mrs. Pierce hasn't arrived yet. She texted that she's taking a mental health morning after the gala." Austin slammed his fist on the desk. "Unbelievable. Fine. Send security down. Tell them to escort the auditors to the small conference room in the basement, the one with the bad Wi-Fi." I can't do that, sir," Lydia said, her voice trembling. "Why not?" "Because Ms. D'Angelo is already in the main boardroom. She has the security codes, sir." Austin went cold. The security codes. He hadn't changed them since the divorce. It was his birthday backwards. Of course she knew them. He stormed out of his office and down the hall to the main glass-walled boardroom, the fishbowl, as the employees called it. Gabrielle was already seated at the head of the table, his seat. Her team had set up laptops, portable servers, and a printer. They were moving with the efficiency of a SWAT team. "You can't be in here," Austin blustered, barging in. "This is for executive use only." Gabrielle didn't look up from a spreadsheet. "We are executives, Austin. We own a controlling interest in your merger partner. Now sit down. We have work to do." "I'm the CEO," Austin shouted. Heads turned in the bullpen outside. "You can't just walk in here and actually Clause 14 Section B of the preliminary agreement," Gabrielle interrupted, finally looking at him. Her eyes were devoid of any warmth. "The external auditor has unrestricted access to all facilities and personnel. Unless you want to cancel the Omnicorp deal right now, I have the termination papers ready to sign." She slid a document across the polished mahogany table. It was a single sheet of paper. Austin stared at it. If the deal fell through, the loans he'd taken out to pay for the expansion and Heather's lifestyle would default immediately. He would be bankrupt in a month. He swallowed his pride. It tasted like bile. "Fine," he hissed, "but stay out of my way." "I don't need to be in your way, Austin," Gabrielle said, typing on her laptop. "I just need your login credentials. The real ones, not the guest access you gave the last auditors." "I don't know what you're talking about." "James," Gabrielle said to the young man on her right. "Pull up the server logs from December the 2024. James tapped a key. A projector screen lowered, displaying a complex web of transactions. "We traced the IP addresses," Gabrielle explained calmly as if discussing the weather. "You have a secondary server located in Panama." "Very cliched, Austin. I expected better from you. Give us the key, or we call the SEC." Austin slumped into a chair. He wrote a password on a slip of paper and slid it over. "Thank you," Gabrielle said. She didn't smile. "Now get out. We have a company to audit." For the next 2 weeks, Gabrielle dismantled Pierce & Co. from the inside out. It wasn't just about numbers. It was psychological warfare. She knew the employees. She remembered their birthdays, their kids' names, the struggles they had with Austin's draconian management style. On Wednesday, she found Frank, the head of logistics. Frank was a good man, a 60-year-old veteran of the industry, who Austin had been threatening to fire for being too slow. Gabrielle found Frank in the break room, staring miserably at a stale donut. "Hello, Frank," she said softly. Frank looked up, his eyes widening. "Mrs. Pierce, I mean. Miss D'Angelo." "Just Gabrielle, Frank. How is your wife? Did she ever get that hip surgery?" Frank's eyes welled up. "No. The insurance plan. Austin switched us to a cheaper provider last year. They denied the claim." Gabrielle's expression hardened. "He switched providers to save money, The company posted record profits last year. He said costs were up. Frank shrugged helplessly. Frank, Gabrielle said, placing a hand on his shoulder. I'm going to need you to testify about the inventory discrepancies, specifically the phantom cargo Austin claims he shipped to Asia. Frank looked scared. He'll fire me. I have 3 years until pension. If you help me, Gabrielle said, Austin won't be in a position to fire anyone, and I promise you when the dust settles, the new management will reinstate the old health plan, retroactively. Frank looked at her. He saw the steel in her spine. He nodded. The shipping manifests are in a hidden folder on the drive. He calls it Project Icarus. By Friday, the office dynamic had shifted. Austin was isolated in his office, paranoid, watching his employees whisper in corners. Whenever he walked by, conversations stopped. Gabrielle was the queen bee, and the hive was turning against the drone. Then Heather finally decided to show up. She burst into the boardroom on Friday afternoon, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a tiny dog in her purse. She looked hungover. You! Heather shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at Gabrielle. You fired my assistant. Gabrielle looked up from a stack of invoices. Actually, I laid off the junior vice president of vibe curation. It's a redundant position, Heather. You don't need someone to curate vibes. You need someone to teach you how to read a P&L statement. Austin! Heather screamed. Are you going to let her talk to me like this? Austin appeared in the doorway looking haggard. He hadn't slept in days. Heather, please, not now. She cancelled the company credit cards, Heather yelled, throwing a black card onto the table. I tried to buy a latte, and it was declined. It was embarrassing. The company credit cards are for business expenses, Gabrielle said coolly. According to the statements, you've spent $40,000 this month on, what is this chakra alignment therapy? It helps my productivity, Heather insisted. It's embezzlement, Gabrielle corrected. And since you are not a shareholder, technically it's theft. I could have you arrested right now. Heather froze. She looked at Austin. Do something. She's right, Austin whispered, rubbing his temples. Technically, it's company money. You coward, Heather spat. She turned to Gabrielle. You think you're so smart. You think you can just come back here and ruin our lives because you're jealous Austin chose me. Me. You're just a bitter old... Gabrielle stood up. The movement was so sudden and fluid that Heather flinched. Let's be clear about something. Heather, Gabrielle said, walking around the table until she was inches from the other woman's face. I am not jealous. I am the repo man. And you're not a wife, you're a liability, and liabilities get liquidated. She handed Heather a piece of paper. What is this? Heather asked, her voice shaking. An eviction notice, Gabrielle said, for the corporate penthouse, the one you're living in. It belongs to the company, and since the company is currently under audit for gross financial misconduct, all non-essential assets are being frozen. You have 48 hours to vacate. Austin! Heather wailed. Austin stared at the floor. He couldn't look at either of them. He knew the penthouse was in the company name to avoid property taxes. He had thought he was being clever. Now it was the noose around his neck. Get out of my boardroom, Gabrielle said softly. Heather ran out, sobbing. Austin looked at Gabrielle. You're enjoying this. No, Austin, Gabrielle said, sitting back down. I'm not enjoying it. I'm just balancing the books. You took 10 years of my life. I'm taking 10 million of yours. Fair trade. The weekend was a nightmare. Austin and Heather were staying at a hotel because the locks on the penthouse had actually been changed on Saturday morning. Gabrielle wasn't bluffing. The Omnicorp deal was stalled. The stock price was wobbling. Austin was bleeding cash. He needed a lifeline. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed, watching Heather aggressively pack her suitcases. "Where are you going?" Austin asked. "My mother's," Heather snapped. "This isn't what I signed up for, Austin. Locked out of my house, declined cards. You told me you were untouchable. It's temporary, babe. Once I get Gabrielle to sign off on the audit. She hates you, Austin. She's never going to sign off. She's going to bury you. And I'm not going to be standing next to you when the dirt hits the coffin." "So that's it." Austin stood up, anger flaring. "For richer or poorer?" "That lasted what? 3 years. Don't quote vows to me." Heather scoffed. "You cheated on your first wife with me. You think I don't know the rules of this game? When the ship sinks, the rats swim. I'm swimming." She slammed the door. Austin was alone. He paced the small hotel room. He needed leverage. He needed to find something on Gabrielle. Everyone had secrets. He called up an old contact, a private investigator named Bruno. "Bruno, I need dirt on Gabrielle D'Angelo, formerly Stone, London-based. I want to know who she's sleeping with, what drugs she takes if she jaywalks. Anything to discredit her." "I'll look," Bruno grunted. "But D'Angelo, that family is connected. You're playing with fire. Just do it." 2 days later, Bruno called back. Austin was back in his office drinking scotch at 10 a.m. "Well?" Austin asked. "Nothing," Bruno said. "She's clean, squeaky clean. She works 18 hours a day. No boyfriends, no scandals. She volunteers at a dog shelter on Sundays. She's a saint." "She is not a saint," Austin yelled. "She's a demon." "There is one thing." Bruno hesitated. "During the divorce 3 years ago, you remember the settlement?" "Yeah, I gave her peanuts." "Well, looking at the records, she didn't cash the check, but she did buy something before she left the country." "What did she buy?" "Your debt." Austin froze. "What?" "There was a bundle of distressed debt sold by your initial angel investors. High risk, high interest. Someone bought the entire package for pennies on the dollar through a shell company in Zurich. It was her." Austin dropped the phone. She hadn't just come back to audit him. She was his creditor. She owned the original loans that started the company, the loans that were secured by his personal assets. If she called in those loans. His intercom buzzed. It was Lydia. "Mr. Pierce, Miss D'Angelo is asking for you in the loading dock." "The loading dock." Austin went down the freight elevator. The loading dock was cold and smelled of diesel. Gabrielle was standing there, wearing a trench coat, watching a tow truck back up. "What is this?" Austin asked. "Asset recovery," Gabrielle said. On the back of the truck was Austin's prized possession, a 1967 vintage Shelby Mustang. He had spent 2 years restoring it. It was his baby. "You can't take that," Austin screamed, running forward. "That's personal property. It's not part of the company. Actually." Gabrielle pulled a file from her coat. The restoration was paid for by a check from the consulting account. That makes it a company asset bought with embezzled funds. Also, as the holder of your distressed debt, I'm exercising my right to seize collateral. "Gabby, please," Austin begged. He touched the hood of the car. "Not the car. Take the house in the Hamptons. Take the boat, not the car." Gabrielle looked at him. For a second, he thought he saw a flicker of the old Gabrielle, the woman who used to make him soup when he was sick. "You love this car, don't you?" she asked softly. "Yes, more than anything." "I know," she said. Her eyes went cold again. "You missed our 10th anniversary dinner, to buy the engine block for it. You missed my father's funeral to go to a car show to find parts for it." She signaled the driver. "Hook it up." "No." Austin grabbed her arm. "Two security guards." His security guards stepped forward and pulled him back. "Don't touch the auditor, Mr. Pierce," one of the guards said. It was Mike, the head of security. Austin had denied Mike a Christmas bonus last year. Austin watched as the car was hoisted up. "Where are you taking it?" he croaked. "To the crusher." Gabrielle lied. She wasn't going to crush it. She was going to sell it and donate the money to a women's shelter. But she wanted him to feel the pain. "Why are you doing this?" Austin wept. He was actually crying now. "Is it because of Heather?" "She left me. I'm alone. Isn't that enough?" Gabrielle stepped closer. The smell of rain and expensive perfume wafted off her. "It's not about Heather, Austin. Heather was just a symptom. You think you're the victim here. You built a castle on a swamp of lies. I'm just letting gravity do its job." She turned to walk away, but stopped. "Oh, and Austin. I found the ghost protocol ledger. The real one." Austin stopped crying. The blood drained from his face. You did?" "Yes, and it's fascinating. It turns out you weren't just hiding money from me. You were hiding money from the cartel investors you brought in off the books in 2023. Austin began to shake violently. The investors from 2023 were dangerous men who didn't sue, men who broke legs. "You can't tell them," Austin whispered. "They'll kill me." Gabrielle smiled. It was a terrifying, final smile. "I don't have to tell them, Austin. As the auditor, I have a legal obligation to publish a transparent financial report. It goes public tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Anyone can read it, even them." "Gabby, you can't. That's a death sentence." "Then I suggest you run," she said. "You have until 9 a.m. I'd start with the airport, but I think I just cancelled your company credit card." She walked away, her heels clicking rhythmically on the concrete floor. Click, click, click. Like a clock counting down, Austin stood in the empty loading dock. He had no wife, no car, no home, no money. And in less than 24 hours, the most dangerous people in the hemisphere would know he had stolen $5 million from them. He reached into his pocket for his phone to call for help, but his hand was shaking so badly, he dropped it. The screen shattered on the floor. It was over. The ruin was complete. Or so he thought. Because Gabrielle D'Angelo wasn't done yet. She didn't just want him broken. She wanted him to admit why he deserved it. She wanted the confession. And she had one final twist waiting for him in the morning. The Seattle rain had turned into a deluge. It was 2 a.m., 7 hours before Gabrielle's report was scheduled to go public. Austin Pierce was running. He wasn't running physically. He was too exhausted for that. But his mind was sprinting, looking for an exit that didn't exist. He sat in his rental car, a cheap sedan that smelled of stale cigarettes, parked in the shadowed corner of a self-storage facility in Bellevue. This was his fail-safe. Unit 404. Years ago, when he first started cooking, the books Austin had rented this unit under a fake name, Thomas J. Ripley. Inside, hidden in a hollowed-out washing machine, was a waterproof duffel bag containing $500,000 in cash, 3 fake passports, and a Glock. It was his break glass in case of emergency kit. He pulled his hood up and scurried through the rain to the keypad. He punched in the code. Access denied. Austin froze. He punched it in again. Access denied. Panic clawed at his throat. He tried a third time. The screen flashed red. "Can I help you, sir?" Austin spun around. A night security guard was standing there, holding a flashlight. "My code isn't working," Austin stammered, keeping his face hidden. "I'm Mr. Ripley, Unit 404. "Oh, Mr. Ripley," the guard said, checking his clipboard. "The Thaw. Yeah, that unit was seized this afternoon." "Seized?" Austin shrieked. "By who?" "By the owner of the facility. Apparently the unit was purchased by a shell company that just got liquidated. A Ms. D'Angelo sent a crew over. Said something about recovering embezzled assets. They took everything, even the washing machine." Austin fell to his knees in the mud. She knew. She knew about the storage unit. She knew about the fake name. She had stripped him of his getaway money. She had stripped him of his protection. He scrambled back to his car, his breath coming in jagged gasps. He locked the doors, his heart hammering against his ribs like a sledgehammer. Think, Austin. Think. The investors, the cartel contacts represented by a terrifying man named Vargas, would be waking up soon. Once the report hit at 9 a.m., they would see their money was gone. Vargas didn't do lawsuits. Vargas did disappearances. Austin needed protection. He needed a cell. He needed the police. It was a sick irony. The only place safe from the criminals he had bedded was inside the prison system he had spent his life avoiding. He grabbed his phone. He would call Benedict, his lawyer. He would turn himself in. He would cut a deal. "Benedict, pick up, Austin muttered. "Hello?" Benedict's voice was groggy. "Ben, it's me. It's over. She has everything. You have to get me a meeting with the district attorney. Tonight. Right now. I'll testify. I'll give them the cartel. Just get me into protective custody." There was a long silence on the other end. "Austin," Benedict said, his voice strangely cold. "I can't represent you anymore." Why I pay you a retainer. Your retainer check bounced yesterday, and frankly I have my own problems. I just received a subpoena from the SEC. It seems someone sent them a recording of our conversation from last week. The one where you told me to shred the Cayman files. Austin stopped breathing. She bugged the office. She didn't have to. Benedict spat. "You sent the audio file to your own cloud backup. She has your passwords, remember? She just forwarded the email. I'm cutting a deal for myself, Austin. I'm giving them everything on you to save my own license. Don't call me again." The line went dead. Austin screamed, smashing the steering wheel with his fists until his knuckles bled. He was radioactively toxic. No lawyer, no money, no wife, no escape. He looked at the digital clock on the dashboard. 4:30 a.m. He had 4.5 hours before the report went live, before Vargas found out. He had one card left to play. The Hail Mary. He started the car and drove toward the city. He wasn't going to the police station. He was going to the source. He was going to beg the only person who had the power to stop the clock. He drove to the Four Seasons Hotel. He knew she was staying in the presidential suite. He knew because he used to stay there. He bribed the night concierge with his vintage Rolex, the last thing of value he owned, to let him up the elevator. He stood outside the double mahogany doors of the suite. He looked like a madman. His suit was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes wild and bloodshot. He knocked. No answer. He pounded on the door. Gabrielle, open the door." "Please." The door opened. Gabrielle stood there, She was fully dressed in a white silk robe, holding a cup of tea. She looked rested, calm, and immaculate. Behind her, the suite was warm and golden. "You look terrible, Austin," she said, taking a sip of tea. "Let me in." Austin pushed past her, collapsing onto the sofa. "You have to stop it. You have to stop the report." Gabrielle closed the door quietly. "Why would I do that?" "Because they will kill me," Austin cried. "Vargas, the cartel guys, if they see that money is gone, they won't sue me, Gabby. They'll skin me alive. Is that what you want? Do you want me dead?" Gabrielle walked over and sat in the armchair opposite him. She crossed her legs. "Dead, no," she said thoughtfully. "Death is too easy. Death is an escape. I don't want you to escape, Austin. I want you to linger." "Then stop the report. Give me 24 hours. I can get some money. I can—" "You can what?" Gabrielle interrupted, her voice sharp as a whip. "Lie, cheat, steal. That's all you know how to do. You think this is about money. You think I spent 3 years in London, working 100-hour weeks, learning forensic accounting, building a dossier on you, just to get a payout." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "Do you remember the day you served me the divorce papers? Gabby, that was years ago. Do you remember?" she pressed. "I was sick. I had the flu. You told me I looked pathetic. You told me I was a dead weight. You kicked me out of the house I decorated, away from the life I helped build, so you could move in a 24-year-old who couldn't even spell logistics." "I made a mistake," Austin sobbed. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Apologies are for spilled wine, Austin. This is reckoning." She stood up and walked to the desk. She picked up a thick document. "This is the report," she said. Austin's eyes widened. "Burn it. Please. I'll do anything. I'll sign over the company. I'll leave the country." "You can't sign over the company," Gabrielle said calmly. "You don't own it anymore. I triggered the default clause on your debt an hour ago. The bank, which is me, now owns Pierce and Company." Austin gasped. "But," Gabrielle continued, "I can delay the public release of the section regarding the cartel investors. I can redact the names of Vargas and his associates. I can make it look like a standard corporate bankruptcy." "Yes." Austin scrambled up, falling to his knees at her feet. "Yes, do that. Please save me from Vargas." "I will," Gabrielle said, "on one condition." "Anything?" "You confess to everything else, the fraud, the embezzlement, the tax evasion. You write a full confession signed and you walk into the FBI field office at 9 a.m. and hand it to Agent Reynolds. He's expecting you." Austin stared at her. "Prison. It's prison or Vargas." Gabrielle shrugged. "Inside a federal penitentiary, you're safe from the cartel. You'll be a high-profile, white-collar criminal. Minimum security, maybe. If you're lucky." She dropped a pen and a notepad on the floor in front of him. "Choose Austin. The cage or the coffin." Austin looked at the pen. He looked at the rain lashing against the window. He realized with a crushing finality that she had checkmated him completely. She wasn't just ruining him. She was forcing him to choose his own punishment. With a shaking hand, he picked up the pen. "I'll write it," he whispered. Gabrielle watched him write. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just watched like a scientist observing a specimen. The Federal Building, Seattle. 8:55 a.m. The lobby of the Henry M. Jackson Federal Building was a cavern of cold stone and echoing footsteps. To Austin Pierce, it felt like the mouth of a tomb. He stood near the security checkpoint, shaking. He hadn't slept in 30 hours. His Italian suit, once his armor, was now a wrinkled, damp shroud. Passers-by, lawyers in crisp shirts, clerks with coffees, gave him a wide berth. He smelled of fierce, stale sweat and the devastating realization that his life was over. He clutched the black notebook to his chest. It contained the confession Gabrielle had forced him to write. It was a detailed roadmap of every bribe, every forged invoice, and every laundered dollar. But the most important thing wasn't what was in the book. It was what Gabrielle had promised to leave out of her public report. Austin checked his watch. 5 minutes until 9 a.m. 5 minutes until the investors, the cartel enforcers led by the terrifying Vargas, checked the accounts and realized their money was gone. If Austin wasn't in federal custody by then, he was a dead man. "Mr. Pierce." Austin jumped, nearly dropping the notebook. Standing in front of him was Agent Reynolds. He was a man carved from granite with a buzz cut and eyes that had seen every variety of white-collar scum the city had to offer. He didn't look impressed. "Agent Reynolds," Austin croaked. His throat was so dry it hurt to speak. I'm here to turn myself in." "We know," Reynolds said, his voice flat. "Ms. D'Angelo called the field office an hour ago. She said you'd be bringing us a gift." Austin handed over the notebook with trembling hands. Reynolds took it, flipping through the pages with agonizing slowness. "This is comprehensive," Reynolds noted, raising an eyebrow. "You admit to the wire fraud, the tax evasion, the embezzlement of employee pension funds." "Yes, all of it," Austin whispered, looking over his shoulder at the glass doors. He expected a black SUV with tinted windows to pull up any second. He expected Vargas. "Just, please tell me, did she release the report? Are the names redacted?" Reynolds closed the notebook and looked at Austin with a mix of pity and disgust. "Ms. D'Angelo kept her end of the bargain, Mr. Pierce. The public audit report went live 2 minutes ago. The section regarding your high-risk private lenders lists the funds as anonymous toxic debt. Vargas and his associates aren't named." Austin let out a sob of relief. His knees buckled, and he had to grab the security desk to stay upright. "Thank God," Austin wept. "Thank God." "I wouldn't celebrate just yet," Reynolds said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metal clicked ominously. "You're safe from the cartel, Austin, but you just confessed to crimes that carry a mandatory minimum sentence. You're trading a coffin for a cage." "I'll take the cage," Austin said, holding out his wrists. "Just get me inside, please." As the cuffs locked into place, biting into his skin, Reynolds grabbed his arm to lead him toward the elevators. "Wait," Austin said. Through the glass doors of the lobby, he saw movement at the curb. A sleek black Bentley had pulled up through the morning drizzle. The rear window rolled down slowly. Gabrielle sat in the back. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She wore large sunglasses and a coat that looked like soft armor. She watched the scene with the detached interest of a CEO inspecting a terminated employee. Austin stared at her. He wanted to scream. He wanted to beg. He wanted her to look at him with hate, with anger, with something. Hate would mean he still mattered. Hate would mean he still had power over her. But there was no hate. There was only indifference. Gabrielle gave a single sharp nod. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a receipt. Transaction completed. The window rolled up, reflecting the gray Seattle sky, and the Bentley pulled away, disappearing into the traffic. Austin watched her go, and for the first time he understood the true extent of his ruin. She hadn't just beaten him. She had outgrown him. "Let's go, Mr. Pierce," Reynolds said, yanking him toward the elevator. "You have a lot of laundry to do where you're going." 1 month later. The transformation of the 41st floor was complete. The heavy, oppressive mahogany paneling that Austin had loved was gone. The dark leather furniture that smelled of cigars was gone. The office was now an open concept space, flooded with natural light, decorated in cool tones of slate white and teal. The sign behind the reception desk no longer said Pierce and Company. It read, Phoenix Logistics. Gabrielle walked through the bullpen. The atmosphere was unrecognizable. Under Austin, the office had been a place of whispers and fear. Now it was buzzing with energy. "Good morning, Ms. D'Angelo." Gabrielle stopped. Frank, the head of operations, was beaming at her. He looked 10 years younger. "Good morning, Frank," she smiled. "How is your wife recovering?" "She's walking already," Frank said, tears pricking his eyes. "The retroactive insurance coverage you authorized paid for everything, even the physical therapy." I don't know how to thank you." "Thank the company, Frank," Gabrielle said gently. "You helped build it. It's supposed to take care of you." She continued into her corner office, the office that had once been Austin's throne room. She sat behind the desk, a sleek slab of glass and chrome. James, her assistant, walked in, carrying a cardboard box. "Ms. D'Angelo, the U.S. Marshals released the last of Mr. Pierce's personal effects from the seized penthouse. Most of it was auctioned off to pay the IRS, but they sent this over. They said it was marked personal." Gabrielle looked at the box. It was a pathetic, battered thing. "Open it," she said. James cut the tape. He pulled out a framed photograph of Austin and Heather on a yacht in Cabo. The glass was cracked. "Trash," Gabrielle said. James pulled out a heavy gold watch. It was a fake, a knockoff Patek Philippe. Austin had always been about appearances, even with his jewelry. "Trash," she repeated. Finally, James pulled out a small, dusty velvet box. He opened it. Inside sat a diamond ring. Gabrielle's breath hitched for a fraction of a second. It was her engagement ring, the one Austin had bought her 10 years ago, back when they were eating ramen and dreaming big. She had thrown it at him the night he kicked her out. She hadn't realized he had kept it. "He kept this in his safe," James said softly. "Do you want to keep it? For the memories?" Gabrielle took the ring. She held it up to the light. It didn't look like a memory to her. It looked like a shackle she had finally unlocked. She thought about the woman who had worn this ring. That woman was naive. That woman was loyal to a fault. That woman was dead. "No," Gabrielle said, dropping the ring back into James's hand. "I don't want it. What should I do with it?" Gabrielle looked out the window at the city skyline. She owned the view now. "Take it to the jeweler downstairs," she ordered. "Sell it. Whatever you get for it, use the cash to buy that high-end espresso machine the staff has been asking for. The Italian one." James grinned. "The Breville Oracle Touch. That's an expensive machine." "It's a fair trade," Gabrielle said. "A symbol of a failed marriage for a really good cup of coffee. I think the team deserves the caffeine." James left the room chuckling. Gabrielle turned back to her laptop. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text message from Agent Reynolds. Sentencing hearing concluded. 18 years. No parole eligibility for at least 50. He's been assigned to the laundry detail at SeaTac Federal. Pay rate is 14 cents an hour. Gabrielle stared at the screen. 18 years. By the time Austin Pierce walked free, the world would have forgotten his name. He would be an old man, with nothing but a story about how he once had it all and threw it away for a pretty face and an ego trip. She didn't feel a surge of joy. She didn't feel the need to celebrate. She felt a profound, quiet sense of balance. The scales were even. She deleted the message. "James," she called out. James poked his head back in. "Yes, boss. Get me the file on the Omnicorp CEO Roger," Gabrielle said, her eyes narrowing with a familiar, predatory, sharp focus. "I was looking at his expense reports from the gala. He charged $15,000 for client entertainment at a venue that doesn't exist. I think it's time we audited the auditors." Gabrielle D'Angelo wasn't done. She was just getting started. And that is how Gabrielle Stone didn't just survive her divorce, she weaponized it. In the end, Austin Pierce learned the hardest lesson of all. You can steal a woman's youth, you can steal her home, and you can steal her joy, but you should never, ever steal her dignity. He thought he was discarding a broken wife, but he was actually freeing a mastermind. He is now sitting in a 6x8 cell washing sheets for 14 cents an hour. While Gabrielle runs the empire he was too arrogant to keep. It wasn't just revenge. It was a hostile takeover of his entire existence. If you enjoyed this story of high-stakes justice and ultimate karma, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that the best revenge is massive success. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.